What's up, Star Wars fans? Today I want to talk about finding Ezra. That's right, Dave Filoni has been hinting that the Ahsoka series is going to be the search for Ezra, that we're going to see Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren tracking down their old friend. And today I want to speculate on how Ahsoka and Sabine are going to find Ezra. But before we get to that, if you love Star Wars and speculation, then hit that subscribe button and come back again soon. But hey, getting back on track here, The Art of the Mandalorian Season 2 was recently published, and in it, Dave Filoni was hinting about the Ahsoka series. I recently did a video on these hints. If you haven't watched the video, you should definitely check it out. But basically in that video, we talk about how Dave Filoni didn't want Ahsoka Tano to be the one to take Grogu from Din Djarin. He stated that he already had a plan for Ahsoka Tano and knew what she was up to at this point in the timeline. And certainly if you've watched Star Wars Rebels and you watched that Rebels epilogue at the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 4, then it's pretty easy to see that Dave Filoni is most likely hinting at the fact that Ahsoka Tano during this time in the timeline is trying to find Ezra Bridger along with Sabine Wren. And of course, one of the big questions that Star Wars Rebels fans have been asking is whether or not that scene from the Rebels epilogue has taken place at around the time of The Mandalorian, or is it something we're going to see at the beginning of the Ahsoka series, an event that hasn't yet happened in the Mandalorian timeline. And certainly Dave Filoni has hinted that the Star Wars Rebels epilogue hasn't actually taken place in the Mandalorian timeline yet, and even if we take a quick look at the Rebels epilogue itself, it certainly seems that Sabine Wren and Ahsoka Tano meet well after the Civil War, and probably the biggest evidence for this is just looking at the city of Lothal. Remember, the capital city took an absolute beating when Thrawn showed up at the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 4. And at the time Sabine and Ahsoka set off in the Rebels epilogue searching for Ezra, we can see that capital city has not only recovered, but has actually flourished, becoming more beautiful and wealthy than it ever was under the Empire. And remember, the Mandalorian timeline takes place approximately 9 to 10 years after the end of Star Wars Rebels in the beginning of the Galactic Civil War. So for capital city to rebuild and to develop the massive wealth it would take to rebuild the city this way, 9, 10, maybe even 11 or 12 years certainly makes a lot of sense. Meaning that if we look at the latest point in the Mandalorian timeline so far, the very end of the Book of Boba Fett, I don't believe Ahsoka has gone to Lothal to pick up Sabine Wren yet. But that out of the way, I have to acknowledge that many theorists and speculators like myself have suggested that Ahsoka and Sabine would be traveling to the unknown regions to track down Thrawn and Ezra. And in the past, I've come up with many different theories as to how exactly Ahsoka and Sabine could find Ezra in such a massive region. And my favorite theory out of all those was probably that they were going to use Luke's compass, can be seen on his desk in The Last Jedi. But as cool as some of those theories were, I don't think Ahsoka and Sabine are going to need any force powers or force artifacts or the world between worlds to track down Ezra Bridger. I mean, after all, in The Mandalorian Season 2, Dave Filoni shows us exactly what Ahsoka Tano is doing to track down Ezra, and it certainly just comes down to some good old detective work that Obi-Wan Kenobi would be proud of. She knows at the very least that the last person that Ezra Bridger was seen with was Thrawn, and as we see in The Mandalorian Season 2, she's tracking down anyone that might have been connected to or is currently connected to the Grand Admiral himself. For example, during the Galactic Civil War, Morgan Elsbeth was in charge of helping to build the Imperial fleet, and we can certainly infer that Ahsoka Tano believes that Morgan Elsbeth is in fact still working with Thrawn to help resupply the Imperial remnant and build some sort of fleet for the Grand Admiral. But here's another really important layer to this theory, and that is that while Ahsoka has tracked down Morgan Elsbeth independently, she certainly isn't working solo. It would make a lot of sense that she would be in touch with General Hera Syndulla of the New Republic, and that she would be getting information from her. Not to mention that The Mandalorian Season 2 also suggested that Bo-Katan Kryze is also very much in close contact with Ahsoka Tano. I mean, Bo-Katan did tell Din Djarin exactly where to find Ahsoka Tano, so no doubt all the information that Bo-Katan Kryze knows about the Imperial remnant in the Outer Rim, well, we can assume that Ahsoka Tano knows all of that information as well, if not at least most of it. Which means at the end of The Mandalorian Season 2, when Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and the rest of those heroes take over Moff Gideon's cruiser and rescue little baby Grogu, while Bo-Katan no doubt shared any intel that she found on Moff Gideon's cruiser with Ahsoka Tano as well. well. And during that time, it would make a lot of sense that Ahsoka Tano had continued to hunt down other key individuals in the Imperial Remnant, trying to track down and get closer to Grand Admiral Thrawn, so she could find the whereabouts of the lost Jedi Ezra Bridger. So unfortunately, I don't have for you some elaborate theory involving the Force or Force artifacts, but like I said earlier, some good old detective work that Ahsoka's putting in, and no doubt by the time the Ahsoka Tano series rolls around, Ahsoka will have already found Ezra's location, and it's just going to be up to her, Sabine, Wren, and maybe some other heroes to help bring the lost Jedi home. But hey, Star Wars fans, I'll have some of my other theories here on the end cards, and as always, remember this is just my crazy speculation, so don't take it too seriously, and certainly don't think it's what Dave and John are going to come up with for the final Ahsoka series. That said, I'm Mike, and remember, the Force will be with you always.